Hi, this is American Perspective with Patriot Mom 007. Thanks for joining me again. And this time in my chair is Alex Kolodin. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So Alex came from across town and from another event, as always. These guys are super busy these days. Not only does he have a law firm, Kolodin Law Group, here in Arizona, he also is running for office, and we have been kind of following him around town. We see him, I see him at events, and went up and said hello to him recently, and just thought we could hear more from him because I don't know a lot about him, and I would like to learn more. I'm sure you would too. So let's just jump right in. We will get to candidacy later, but I would like to start. You have your law group that you founded, and tell me just a little bit about it. It's here in Arizona in Phoenix?
Yeah. I founded Kolodin Law Group back in 2014. I'd gotten out of law school and gone to work for a big firm in central Phoenix. We were defending big auto manufacturers like Toyota and Honda and stuff like that. And one of the major firm clients it dropped us about 6 months after I joined, so they laid off about a third of the workforce. And I had been a little bit in the real estate world. My parents ran a real estate brokerage and had been trying to originate some small cases, bring small business into the firm. And so when they dropped me, I go, well, I'm looking for another job. I might as well do a little bit of work on some of these smaller cases to kind of make beer money, make rent money, all of that stuff. And I had been a Reagan Fellow at the Goldwater Institute before all this happened. I'd been there my first summer. So the summers you spend in law school are very important. And I worked for the litigation center there under Clint Bullock, who's now Justice Bullock. So a couple months into this, I go to him and I go, hey, Clint, I'm doing my thing, and I was looking for a job, but now I'm kind of like being out on my own. I'm not really a big firm type of guy. Yeah. Do you know any HOAs that need lawyers? Because that's how stupid I was. I was like, any HOAs? Like, I'm talking to the head of the Goldwater Institute Litigation Center. He's like, HOAs? He goes, no, not really, but I do know some people in politics who do. And so within about 6 months after that, so I'm about a year out of law school, I'm in my first election integrity trial against Santa Cruz County. And the Secretary of State is trying to get involved in all of that. And it was over whether the metadata that's stored on election tabulator machines is public record, that my clients wanted to access it. And we won. I actually won with my friend Don Cartier, who wasn't even admitted to the bar yet. I went, Your Honor, this is my friend Don Cartier, he was a year behind me. We went to college together. I kind of need help at the trial, but I know he can't speak. Is it okay if he just sits here and helps me?
Nice.
The judge is like, sure. So so our little scrappy team beat the county and the Secretary of State.
That's fantastic.
But here's the thing: when we got that information, where our clients got it, they actually found out that somebody was printing early voting results before election day. And so when people tell me, oh yeah, the election system's safe and secure, it's like, no, the hell it isn't. And we've known for 10 years that it isn't, right? And the thing that I find grossly ironic was that even Elizabeth frickin' Warren, in 2019 was yelling her heads off about how insecure the machines were and how some foreign power is going to hack their way into the machines. And I was just like she must have hit her head really hard around November of 2020 and got amnesia. I really hope she makes a speedy recovery.
Right, yeah, I know. It's like they were not secure, and then they were the most secure ever.
Most secure election in American history.
In American history, other than the Russians and everybody hacking, but that's another story. They always forget the small details when they spout things out. So speaking of the election integrity, so you worked with Sidney Powell for a little bit on Trump's team on the election. Is that what it was?
There were kind of two teams, right? There was the Sidney Powell team, which is kind of the unofficial team, and there was the Giuliani team, which was like the official team. So I ended up on the Powell team, which is how I like to do it.
Right?
Yeah. And I like to be on the unofficial, pinch hitters anyway. A little
more leeway.
Yeah, but it was super fun.
Not the outcome you guys were hoping for.
Well,
in ways maybe there was.
Yeah, people say that, but people forget there was two components to the lawsuit, right? There was the decertification,
right?
But the preliminary relief that we had asked for was that for the machines to be impounded and audited, so we can see if it should be permanently decertified or just temporarily decertified, right? That was what we asked for, and what we did in Arizona, for Sydney that wasn't done by local council in a lot of places around the country is we got members of the legislative branch involved, right? We had the legislators who had conducted hearings or conducted their own investigation, do their own research,
Right.
right? They did the research, and then they submitted declarations to the court. And this is both the state legislative and the federal legislative, and they submitted declarations to the court saying, no, like at least in Arizona, the stuff that these guys saying, we think there's a really good reason to believe it. So when the courts in other states would yeet these cases out, that was kind of the end of the road. But here, the legislators got really pissed because we're like, court, you just said this wasn't plausible, but we've just told you that we, a co-equal branch of government, have conducted an investigation,
right,
and we find it plausible. Like, what the hell's up with that? And I think that was one of the reasons that the state Senate eventually decided to perform an audit, was that the members got really pissed that they were treated that way by the courts. I mean, I always say it's kind of funny, because everybody claims responsibility for the audit, 100 people do, and they're all right? I mean, but we all did our part to get that to happen, and most importantly, the grassroots activists did their parts to get that to happen. But so I always tell people, I'm the one attorney in the country that actually managed to get Sidney Powell half of what she wanted, and we did.
That's great. So you obviously are in favor of helping our country in any way you can to step up to the plate, whether it's local or on a federal level. So we are glad to know that you're in the race, because we definitely need help here in Arizona, in our House, in our legislature. And we have some good people, we have some not good people. We've seen that with this last round of elections. Some people who I just found out recently left before a bill was passed. I did a poll observer training yesterday, and I found out 4 of our friends in the Republican group, they left for vacation before an important bill could be voted on even. And disappointing for sure, because I assume they have a schedule ahead of time when bills are coming up. I don't know for a fact, but it seems
sometimes
like they
yes,
might.
Sometimes
okay.
no.
All right, fair enough.
And that's a problem with leadership, by the way.
So maybe that needs to be something you can address, and so that everybody's on the same page and not flitting off to Cabo or for summer vacation.
The voters of the East Valley can address this by getting rid of that Rusty Powers. Get rid of him.
Right. I hear that name. I don't know the man myself. I do hear a lot about him, so I might have to do a little research for myself on that.
I know everything I need to know about him by the way he votes.
And here, speaking of our election integrity, I know we just bought a couple $1 million worth of new Dominion machines. I worked the audit for 3 months, so I'm pretty familiar with what happened in Arizona firsthand. So let's just, if you are elected, how do you plan on working with even some Republicans who have not been on board through this last year with some votes that would help us versus hurt us? How does that happen? You're coming in, Joe Chaplick's in, maybe he'll get in it again. You know a lot of people, you've already worked integrity on a national level. How do you translate that to actually getting things done here?
So this is a multi-part question. I'll go through the parts. Okay. The first component, and I have not just worked on election integrity stuff, I've also worked on various other bills. I'm privileged that some of the more conservative members will come to me if they want help writing a bill. They want to make sure it's effective and enforceable. And one of the people who came to me this past session was Senator Bartow to help her draft some health freedom legislation, some of which we did manage to get signed into law, some of which we didn't. But what I discovered through this process was that you would get industry lobbyists that would come down and they would spout a whole bunch of legal mumbo jumbo at the members of the legislature saying you can do this, or if you do this it'll violate federal law, or you can't do this, or you don't need to do this because it's already the law. And sometimes the different lobbyists would say things that like totally contradicted each other. And the members would just get so confused and worried because they had no legal expertise. They had no way to make this decision. Of course, it doesn't help that there's legislative counsel that's staffed by mostly Democrats, right, who are the advisors to the legislature, right? And so they get confused and they get sort of scared off of some more conservative legislation because fundamentally they don't understand what their powers actually are. So one component of it is fixing that, going in there and having somebody in there who's a colleague who can explain to them, yes, we can do this. Here's why we can do this. Here's the way the law works. And they have somebody to listen to besides the lobbyist or besides legislative counsel. That's very important. That's one of the reasons I believe Jackie Parker has been such an effective freshman member of the legislature. Very proud to say she's endorsed our campaign. The other component is the voters, right? You got to give us a larger majority, and you got to give us a Republican governor. Okay, that's super critical. Because there are things, by the way, there are things that I can do, right? If I don't have a larger majority, right? I mean, legislators have 1983 requests, right? I could tell the Attorney General, only a member of the legislature can do this, write a letter and say, I think this Maricopa County or this county or that county, they're breaking the law with respect to elections or this or that. Please investigate. When they get a letter like that from the legislature, from one single member of the legislature, they have to. They have to investigate it. If they find that the county is indeed breaking the law, they have to withhold a substantial portion of state shared funding until that is remedied. And in fact, that was behind the scenes as a private citizen, not my capacity as a lawyer. That was what I suggested to Senator Borelli when the county was defying the legislative subpoena, right? I say, well, why don't you write a 1983 letter to the AG saying, hey, we think they're breaking the law. And sure enough, he did. Sure enough, they said, yeah, they're breaking the law. We're going to withhold state shared funding. And then immediately the county caved, essentially. So it's very powerful. But if you want to get legislation passed and not just want to do cool tricks like that, I need also larger conservative majority, and I need those conservative members, to be more conservative, right? I think voters are very aware now that squishy Republicans are a big part of the problem. They're on guard. I think voters are still having trouble, trouble telling squishy and non-squishy apart, right? Because that's hard to do.
It is.
Unless you're a PC. I think the PCs know. I always say, just if you're like the average Republican voter and you just want to know who the conservative candidate is, just look who the PCs are backing. That's the thing.
Well, oddly enough, I'm going to be a PC in November in my neighborhood, and I've got already people are sending me copies of their ballots to ask who. I'm like, do you need help with the whole ballot? Do you have any idea at all? You might want to Google a couple people. Like, you kind of want to educate yourself. Although, of course, I'll weigh in too. But I do find that a lot of people don't have a grasp on who is out there. They don't really see them or know them. So we appreciate that you're here today, because we'd like to get more people knowledgeable about who is running for our legislature here in Arizona. And you have a couple issues. I mean, where do you think you're going to tackle? What do you want to tackle with the people that maybe still reside there in the House that you could work with on some really maybe two key issues?
Well, look, obviously election integrity is going to be a major issue.
Given.
It's going to be given. Unless the Democrats get through this state version of HB1 that's subject to the Voter Protection Act, which is another thing, by the way, I need from the voters is please stop this. Please tell all your friends not to vote, not to sign any of these stupid petitions, certainly not to vote for any of these ballot initiatives. Like, they are bad because there's something called the Voter Protection Act that says that once the voters pass a law, unlike the legislature can't change it except to advance the intent of the voters, which is basically like, no way can the legislature change it in any fashion. So if that gets passed, all of the good work that I think our party is doing, finding candidates who are passionate about election integrity and getting them into the legislature and getting them into other positions in our government, is not going to amount for much of a hill of beans, if we don't get this killed. So this is going to be the major thing after the primaries. These voters need to shift to do that, and they need to shift also to electing a Republican governor who will actually sign.
Which I see that happening.
Yeah, it's actually sign the legislation. So I'm very pleased that the PCs are overwhelmingly backing our candidacy for the open seat by a margin of like 7-1, because these are the informed voters, and especially when you're running a state race, like you were saying, state legislative race, like, we don't have the money that's being sent in the U.S. Senate race, right? We don't have the money that's being spent in a congressional race. We can't be running TV ads all the time.
Right.
We send out our mail pieces, we do our digital, we do text and this and that. But
a lot of events.
Yeah, we go to a lot of events, right? But there's 200,000 voters in the district, and we can't meet everybody. So what we hope to do is convince the people like you, who people know and people trust, to back our candidacy, because we know that 20 people are going to reach out to you, and I'd rather them reach out to somebody that they know is informed, right, making that decision.
Definitely. So just to flip back a little bit to you personally, I did note that you were a teacher. You taught 7th and 8th grade in Arizona before opening your practice. So just because I like people to hear, like, you're invested not just as a business person, you are invested election integrity wise, which is important. But I have kids, so one of my sons is still in high school. So, and you have a child.
Yes, I do.
I saw the little baby. Your baby's adorable.
He is pretty adorable.
And so what did you teach in 7th and 8th grade? What was the subject
civics
matter?
and English.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And which school were you at?
I was at a charter school out in the East Valley, which is sadly no longer there, called the Aim High Institute. constitutes.
And how did you like teaching? I mean,
I
that's a
loved it.
departure from law.
Not really. Not teaching civics. Not teaching English. No. It's very much of a piece. In fact, I would say the proudest achievement of my professional life, outside of a courtroom and maybe inside of a courtroom, was taking a class of sort of economically disadvantaged kids who didn't know the first thing about the U.S. Constitution. By the end of the year, getting them so knowledgeable about it and so well informed about it that we actually took him to hear a congressman speak, and they started grilling him on whether his policies were constitutional. And I was just
great.
Like, as
Proud.
a teacher, you're just clutching your heart. And actually, that was the first way I got into politics, was school choice issues. Right, it actually mattered a lot for me as a kid because I had a learning disability, and my mom had to send me to a private school that she knew worked for me, and my family had those resources. That's the only reason I ended up as a lawyer, right? And she actually had to drive me like 45 minutes each way every day. So I always tell people, like, my mom hadn't done that, I'd probably be like behind bars. I still may end up behind bars, but it'll be for taking on
not
the Democrats
just visiting
and the
your
left.
Clients. And
No. I mean, you know what the DOJ is trying to do.
I know you can't make a move.
No, they're trying to make it so that it's illegal to say conservative things, right? This is what this whole investigation is about, right? And it's one of the reasons I'm really passionate about going to the state legislature. Just to go back to that side for a second, is like the state legislature is supposed to stand between you and a federal government that literally wants to criminalize the exercise of your First Amendment rights. So, anyway, the first way I got into politics was school choice. I came back and I was on the board of the Arizona School Choice Trust. Actually, a friend of mine, Shauna Bullock, invited me to join that board because I really wanted every Arizona student, regardless of their economic means, to have the same opportunities that I did. And I've been advocating for a system of true backpack funding for years and years and years, and we made huge progress with the ESA bill.
You must be thrilled with this.
I'm like super thrilled, and now I'm like, let's go further, let's go further, let's go further.
Right.
But here's the thing, right? Because I love that Republicans have finally realized the importance of the school board position. That's major. But what we have to understand is, like, this system is rotten from the bottom to the top, right? These people are who staff the schools, especially at the administrative level, are products of a system that is meant to turn out doctrinaire liberals, right? And so I love to crib a line from the left, right? There's this feminist poet who has this very famous line: "The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house." It's like the education system is the master's tools, right? There are liberal master's tools that are used to turn our children into people who don't know or care about the Constitution and believe all manner of weird racist things like critical race theory and all of that. It's like we will never get rid of that being a leftist tool unless and until parents can totally opt out of that system and put their child into a system that matches their family's values, that matches their educational objectives for their child. And that's why I always say I envision a system of true backpack funding where it's total funding parity, no matter how you choose to educate your child, whether that's homeschooling, whether that's homeschooling with like tutors and subjects that you don't know, neighborhood schooling, charters, privates, publics, because every child learns differently. I learn differently, right? And the leading expert on your child is you, and nobody's ever going to care about as much about your kid as you do. And so the power should be put into your hands as the parent to have full control over how that child is educated. It's fundamental.
Well, it's good to hear that you were so involved with children at the teaching level, and now you have a child of your own. I know that your child is very young. You have a baby, right?
Yeah, he's 13 months.
13 months. Okay, I knew young. I could see on the. Yeah, I haven't seen in person, but adorable picture. How does your wife love the campaigning? Is she behind? I mean, she's behind you, obviously. But I mean, it's hard. It's a hard road, and you already have a high, probably stressed life in your law firm. You're busy, and you have tons of cases. You're managing a whole group. So, how is your wife handling all of this with the baby? You're probably not home to help her at night every night with the feedings and all that.
One I will say, thank God he's the nighttime feedings have gotten less frequent now. But look, she has been my absolute rock, because in addition to all that, going through some family health issues with my dad, and my wife has just taken this wonderful role and is doing such a good job when I can't be there as much as I would like. and it does take you off. And my wife, I always say, I know she loves me because she backs the campaign. Because I think if it were up to her, well, it is up to her. Because I told you, darling, if you don't want me to run, I won't run. And she's like, no, Alex, go run, go do it. But like, I feel like if it was her, preference,
sure.
right? I would sit in the law firm and I'd take more corporate clients and less political ones.
Right.
And I would just make a lot of money and be home for dinner every night at 5:30 sharp. So I appreciate her, I appreciate her being willing to part with my time. So that I can do what she knows and
is your passion.
Is passion, which is fixing the law, right? It's so frustrating to be a lawyer and have to deal with bad laws, especially when you want to advance conservative policy. It is, and we're seeing laws that members of the legislature didn't read, like the PC bill that we had to fix and have declared.
Right, I'm so thankful because I got my signatures. Then I heard that bill was coming up, and I was like, "Oh, you've got to be kidding! That doesn't seem okay at all to me." So thank heavens that got passed.
Yeah, but what I tell her is, once I get into office, I'm going to take you to all of the committee hearings, so she's got the nights off, and I think it'll be very educational for him to hear all of the arguments from all of the sides, and to be there, so then I can take a little bit off of her plate.
That's nice. Well, it's good to have support from the household because it's a long road. Yeah. Campaigning is not easy. I see you guys out and around town, and I'm busy. I do a lot of things, but that is something to itself. This campaigning trail, and even locally, it's crazy. Your schedule here and there and everywhere. Your website. Tell me that. I want to get it up. So that is it alex4az.com?
Yeah, alexforaz.com. I'm running for State House, Legislative District 3.
There it is behind us.
That's Anthem, Fountain Hills, New River, Cave Creek, Carefree, North Scottsdale. And the primary is August 2nd. So I really encourage you to, it is the most important, and in some ways more important than the general election, right? Because if we don't get people in there who are both dyed-in-the-wool conservatives with a proven conservative track record and who also know how to be effective.
Right.
And that requires knowing the law, unfortunately. Then we're going to end up frustrated as many times because we're going to be in the same situation where we're going to pass a bunch of conservative legislation, and the Democrats are going to find a way to have it shot down in court, or they're going to find a way to have it sort of be in existence but not actually be enforced, or find ways to ignore it. So we have to know how people who actually know how to make laws effective and enforceable. I do. I'm Alex Kolodin, and I encourage you and ask humbly for your vote.
Awesome. Well, we are very thrilled that you came by today to talk to us. I learned a little bit more about the process, as I'm still learning, and about you. So I appreciate your time, certainly.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. We will see you around town again, and you're going to want to check out alex4az.com. I'll put it in the bio when I write it up. It'll be on YouTube in a couple days, and you can get on there and look around his website and make some informed decisions going into the election on August 2nd. You need to educate yourself. I can't say it enough. I didn't know anything. Now I know more than I thought I ever would. 6 months later, I've been checking things out. You can learn a lot really quickly if you just get out there and meet people. They're at events everywhere. There are your LD meetings. They're accessible. You can talk to them. Don't think you can't, and make that the reason you don't find out who they are. They're touchable. They're right here. Well, it's not an illusion.
Voters are always so surprised. So my cell phone number is actually up on my website, right? So if you have questions like that this interview hasn't answered or whatever, call me. Voters are always so surprised that they call the number on the website and they're like, "Can I speak to Alex Kolodin?" I'm like, "I'm here." And they're like, "Oh, I thought I was going to get a staff or a volunteer." I'm like, "I'm not running for Congress. I'm running for State House." There's a reason that the Founding Fathers gave State House the most power, and it's that it is the closest branch to the people. Exactly. We're right there. We're here for you.
It's true. I met you, and you just gave me your cell phone and my cell phone. I literally just had met him out. He didn't even know who I was. Probably didn't even know my name. So, and then here he is, just like that. He was willing to come and take his time 3 weeks before the race, and he made time for us. So that is the people you want, is the people who make time for you, whether it's before the race or once they're in my opinion, that's the people we should be looking for, that have the education, the experience, the knowledge, especially on the legal side. It is a legislature after all. The word itself, it lends itself to the law. So we want strong people in there who know the law and who don't override the law or overlook the law. These are my opinions. I hope people share them. We need a new cycle of people. We need some champions for us, for Arizona, for our citizens in our state, and really across the nation. So thank you again, and we hope you guys join us again. This is American Perspective with Patriot Mom 007 and Alex Kolodin. Thank you.